And joining me live for more on this now is Australian National University international law expert, Professor David Rothwell. David, thank you for your time. Taking Greenland has been a focus of the US since about 1846. They see it as very important in a national security sense, given its size and its positioning. Donald Trump doesn't seem to be mucking around now. He doesn't seem to be bluffing. Is there a chance that the two nations reach a deal? Where to from here, do you think?
Look, I think that the Danish have made it very clear that they're not going to negotiate with respect to Greenland. They're consistently saying now, really for a year, Greenland is not for sale. But you're right, the United States certainly seems to be quite emboldened, especially following the Venezuelan operation a week ago, and the rhetoric coming out of the Trump White House, with the president in particular saying that the United States needs Greenland. So this week, a meeting is scheduled between US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Danish officials. That will be quite an important meeting because it's the highest level meeting that's taken place, certainly with Marco Rubio and his Danish counterparts, and we'll wait to see what comes out of that.
What are you expecting to come out of that meeting then?
Well, the United States may well put some form of offer on the table. I think the Danes, as I said, have made their position very clear. Denmark is not for sale. They're not prepared to cede Greenland's sovereignty to the United States. And of course, they consistently make the point that it's really for the Greenlanders to make decisions about the future of Greenland rather than people in Copenhagen and the colonial rulers effectively in Denmark. So, but we'll wait to see what the United States has to offer. The United States has consistently emphasised its concerns about Russian and Chinese activity in and around Greenland, and that obviously goes to military conduct on the part of those countries. So whether the United States is offering to increase and enhance its military capabilities, which it already has a base on Greenland, may well be one of the offers that Marco Rubio puts on the table.
And China has been increasing its presence in that region through research grants and investment there, from what I understand. Is it feasible that China would make some kind of move, or is it more just about the US showing China that it is strong in that region?
I think it is more the latter, but you're right to say that China has increasingly been indicating its strong interest throughout the Arctic. China has a policy at the moment which says that it's a near Arctic power. And to that end, Greenland is an obvious country into which, or territory into which China can be seeking to assert some level of influence. And we're somewhat familiar with the Chinese playbook in terms of how they've sought to exercise influence with small island states in the Pacific. Greenland, a territory with a population of 60,000, significant underinvestment, significant minerals capability, might be quite open to Chinese investment. So to that end, China will certainly keep its options open. But at the moment, I think they're probably more going to be economic rather than military.
And surely the vast amount of critical minerals in the Arctic is another big draw for Donald Trump. We know that's partly what he's after.
Yes, very much so. And Greenland has significant oil and gas reserves, which have predominantly been underdeveloped, mostly because they're under the ice at the moment, and the costs of developing that and the environmental costs would be very significant. But as the ice becomes thinner and those minerals become more accessible, oil and gas reserves in and around Greenland are going to become much more valuable. But of course, we also definitely know that Greenland has significant rare earth minerals. So the minerals dimension is another one that's somewhat understated, but is well known as being a key feature to Greenland's independence as a sovereign state, but also the interest of the United States, probably also Russia and China too.
Polling has said that a large portion of people in Greenland don't want to be part of Trump's America, but it sounds like they do want independence from the Danes. So is there a chance of Donald Trump, convincing Greenland here?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that the Greenlanders are fiercely independent and are very much seeking to fast track their moves towards autonomy and becoming an independent state. There's even some prospect that they could unilaterally declare independence, in other words, seek to proclaim themselves as an independent state, irrespective of some of these processes. But a truly independent Greenland at the moment would be quite vulnerable to not only the United States, but also to Russia and China. So any sort of fast-tracked unilateral declaration of independence by Greenland would create a whole series of defence, foreign affairs and security issues that a fledgling Greenlandic government really wouldn't want to face at this point in time. So I'm sure that they would be much keener on a more transitioned phase to achieving a greater level of autonomy through an act of self-determination.
And just before we let you go, what are the implications for the Australia-US alliance if Donald Trump pursues some kind of action here in Greenland?
Look, I think they're really quite significant. I think if one can see a more regular diplomatic or political process play out, Australia will be accepting of that. But any significant military action by the United States with respect to Greenland could really represent a red line, I think, for Australia, because not only would that be a clear red line for Australia's European partners and for the NATO countries, I think Australia would be saying, sorry, that is really too far. Any unilateral use of force against Indigenous peoples in a peaceful country is really not acceptable.
And we heard the Foreign Minister Penny Wong saying this morning that this is a matter for the Danish government. Donald Rothwell, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.